Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Symphony. Symphony Entertainment, Gaming, and Arts is my gaming company that focuses on horror systems, indie games, organic content, and player agency in an attempt to bring a symphonic approach to horror role playing. I am your host, Bridget Jeffries, and tonight I am joined by two amazing fellows in the industry. Again, and I'll tell you why at the end of the stream, or at the end of the recording, Ravey and Evan Perlman. Now, I'll have them both introduce themselves here very briefly, but before I do that, let us discuss our content for today. So, in 2023 and beyond, Symphony plans to release more TTRGB or TTRPG supportive and mentoring coachy things. So that could range from tips and tricks to, I don't know, promote your story or immerse your characters, monetize your gaming, convention support, how to network in this community, and more. So tonight, we're going to start with something simple, easy, and hopefully fun. We're going to do 4 creative ways that GMs can introduce their player characters. And what does that mean? I've been on a mission for the last couple of years to explore and try out more interesting ways to introduce PCs rather than just the round table approach, which is what most people are used to, is where you just kind of go around the table and you go like, go ahead and introduce your character. And the player may give you the character's name, occupation, maybe some description, a personality quirk, their top skills, and that's pretty it. It's pretty sterile. It's pretty cold. It's effective by all means. I'm not taking it away from it, but I am constantly looking for ways to try something different. And like with most things, with a little bit of intentionality and a little bit of work, you can improve upon something that's existing. So that is what we are going to do today with the help of Allie and Evan. Allie, starting with you, please tell us who you are, what you do, where people can find you, and anything that you want to hype.
I'm Ravey. You can find me, generally speaking, on the Symphony server, Discord, and the Old Ways podcast server, where I am a cast member for the uh, Vampire the Masquerade Chronicles that we're doing, and I play Katerina Bogdanovich.
We'll figure it out later. It's not a symphony stream or a symphony production if something doesn't break. You're welcome. Amazing. And Evan, can you tell us who you are, what you do, where people can find you, and all of your awesomeness?
Sure. I'm Evan Perlman. I am a writer and group project organizer, I
Whoop
guess,
whoop.
for primarily Call of Cthulhu stuff, but other games and occasionally as well. You can find me. I hang out on Discord somewhat, like on the Symphony Discord and the Miskatonic University podcast Discord. But please at me if you're gonna, because I don't see messages. I'm not on like enough to keep up. Or you can find me on Facebook like an old person. That's where I do a lot of chatting with people there. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. That'll work. That'll work. If you guys think of something you want to add, we're going to do the outro things
Mm-hmm.
again, so you can always add more stuff in there. Perfect. Thank you guys again and again for coming. So, to test out these 4 methods, these 4 alternative ways for GMs to introduce their PCs, I've pulled 2 characters out of a Miskatonic repository scenario by the name of Cold Hunger. This was written by Miskatonic repository creator Paul Dmitrievich, a friend of mine that lives in Australia. I actually ran this silver best-selling scenario at Miskatonic Repository Con 2021. So we have a couple of characters that I literally just copy and pasted directly out of his scenario, and those are the characters that we're going to be introducing and then reintroducing and then reintroducing and then reintroducing during this segment. So, Allie, for the people at home, I am going to tee up your character sheet. With you looking at the character sheet, can you just tell us your impression? What do you see?
Well, what I see is a character that is old as hell. She is 94 years old.
Holy damn.
And
Yeah.
she is a little paranoid. She is living in the here and the now because she ain't got time to worry about anything else. Because who knows when she's going to keel over. Also, she is obsessed with her cat.
Love it. And when you're looking at her skills, what are her skills saying to you?
So her skills were saying to me that she has spent a lot of time studying in just various ways. She has a fair amount of history. She knows more than one language to a certain degree, and she knows a lot about stuff that's spooky, as any good occultist would. And surprisingly enough, she knows a lot about astronomy, which is not super common given the time period, because it's heavily science, especially at her age. And there's a lot that must be dialed into her character as far as the way that she views the world
Hmm.
because of the natural ties between astronomy and occult stuff in general. The way the stars move, alignment of planets, stuff like that,
Yeah.
must make a big impression to how she views the occult world as a whole because of those natural connections, heavenly bodies versus the way that the earth functions.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Bravo. Hopping over to Evan, who is playing our PI. I have that character sheet forward facing for the audience now. What is
Great.
your impression just looking at this sheet?
So the first thing that's catching my mind, usually I start with the skills, but this time I'm catching the backstory first. And it falls into sort of the archetype of the PI, right? You're looking for work, you're down at heel,
Hmm.
you're looking for a drink, right? That's pretty solid PI stuff that if you're familiar with that kind of character, you can build off that. Little backstory from the Great War, hints at some previous trauma, right? Suggests either a cause or a complication of a maybe unhealthy relationship with alcohol, and gives you a lot of space to say this guy is haunted by stuff. He has this feeling of fellowship with surviving friends from the Great War,
Mm.
and so that's pretty straightforward. This is a guy who probably knows his PI job pretty well, is willing to put himself in danger for money and his friends, and potentially due to uh, PTSD or other kind of endemic issues, is going to maybe make some suboptimal choices as he goes.
Oh.
Looking at his skills, a lot of it is the standard PI package, the spot hidden, the psychology, the listen. But what caught my eye right up top there's 50% in art and craft acting, there's
Huh.
50% in disguise, and 45% in fast talk. And it's interesting to me that he came out of the war not with intimidate, but with fast talk. And what I'm thinking is, and I don't really know why yet, but what I'm thinking is this is a guy who does not want to be himself.
Oh.
This is a guy who is more comfortable being someone else, either because he can't process his trauma, or he's ashamed of something, or he aspires to better than what he has. But I think he spends a lot of time living in imaginary people's shoes.
Oh my God. I should just do a whole series on guys interpret this character for me because I think that's absolutely a fast. Actually, let me write that down. Interpret this character for us. Because I would not have looked at that sheet and seen that, which is absolutely brilliant that you did. Okay, guys. So, before we get into the four alternative ways to introduce your characters, let's do that roundtable code approach that most people do. We're at a convention. I have just handed you, as the keeper, these character sheets. I'm going to say, hey, starting on my right with you, Allie, please introduce your character to us and introduce this character like you would if you were just at a convention.
All right. Well, her name is Leanne Conrad, and she's old, 94 years old. She looks wizened. Her skin is just a little bit baggy everywhere, even though she weighs probably 98 pounds soaking wet. She has a pretty severe bend in her spine, mostly from her age and being hunched over all these books. And she walks with this cane that is so wide that it takes up half a normal sidewalk. It's the only way that she can function. But because she's so slow, she's also stealthy. It's very easy to sneak up on people when they don't expect the granny on the sidewalk.
Awesome. That's amazing. And then I would just continue around the table. Evan, tell us about your character.
This is Scam Likely PI, short for Scamander. He's 36 years old, and he's has had a difficult past. He had a hard time in the Great War, and is trying to put his life together and feels a sense of responsibility towards his friends and fellow survivors of the war.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then in regular play, we would start off and we would just get you guys going. First, creative method to introduce your investigators. This is something that I call the morning routine. And actually, it's not fair to say that I should call it this because I completely ripped this off of a cult GM who ran a cult game for me a couple years ago. And this was his method into introducing characters, and I thought it was brilliant. So basically, what we're going to do is versus doing the round table cold entry or the cold open, we are going to do something that looks like this. Starting with Allie. What I would say is, Allie, can you please walk us through your character's morning routine? If a camera were on them with like the bird's eye view, follow or walk us through what Leanne Conrad does as a typical morning routine.
So, what I would do as a typical morning routine is I wake up, I go to the bathroom, I put in my teeth, I go and I pet the 2 cats that are in my living room but sleep outside the bedroom because I know the dangers of cat hair in the mouth first thing in the morning. I learned 20 years ago. So I feed the cats, I feed myself. Everything's a real slog first thing in the morning. Need that coffee. I drink 3 cups of coffee by 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I start the rest of my day at 10 a.m. and never before.
Allie, you're literally one of my favorite just people in the universe. I definitely love you. Beautiful. Okay, Evan, with method 1, the morning routine. Scam likely. What does his morning routine look like?
Scam wakes up every morning early and in pain. Usually a hangover, usually a more systemic pain. And he does this thing every morning. It's a habit he picked up in a French military hospital at the end of the war, called What's Here. And he opens his eyes and he just lays there for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and takes everything in. He says, what's here? What am I noticing? What do I see, smell, taste, touch? None of those are necessarily pleasant. He's woken up in some pretty awful places with some pretty bad tastes in his mouth. But that connects him to the actuality of the day. Sometimes his partner is there at the PI office if they both slept in the office. Sometimes it's a stranger. Sometimes he's on a sidewalk when things are particularly bad. But it gives him a moment to reorient himself and kind of acknowledge that wherever he is where he is, and that's where he's going to start the day.
Wow. Okay. Beautifully done. That was the morning routine. I would like to get impressions from the both of you on how you feel about that particular character introductory method, because I know as a keeper I got some really interesting things. Yes, I understand from the cold open that Allie's character was 94. That's much more cemented when I hear I don't move before 10 a.m. and I have to put my teeth in first thing in the morning. Oh no, that is actually a geriatric character. Got it. Waking up every morning in pain and having to go through a grounding exercise and maybe waking up with a hangover. In your initial introduction, I didn't hear anything about alcoholism at all. So I gained a lot of insight personally as a potential keeper with these characters from this method. But what are your guys' impression of the morning routine?
I think that it's good for any player of any experience level, right? Mostly because you don't have to have a lot of experience. Hell, even your very first experience could be, oh, well, this is probably what I think this character would do. And then you can build off of that. It doesn't require significant backstory, and it doesn't require like pulling a lot of creativity out. It allows you to kind of establish what you think might be a building block into this character. And it's not that hard later on in whatever scenario or long-term campaign you're running to have what very basics of a morning routine, maybe it shifts as you play that character.
Oh, that's a dope idea. Like, what does your morning routine look like after adventuring or investigating for 6 months? Oh, that's brilliant. I need to write that down too. Evan, what is your
Yeah,
impression of the morning
I
routine?
really like this, and something Ali said particularly, that you don't have to have a backstory because you're just zooming in on one scene. You're basically taking a snapshot of your character and saying, what do they look like first thing in the morning? And that opened up for me a really a lot more of a like, I knew he was having a hard time, but this was much more of a tragic, um somber, serious side to him. I came into this wanting to play him a little silly, uh and then I think if he's silly at all, it's a cover for this just enormous pain. um
Mm.
and so I put in, just having to know the setting, right? I put in a little bit of backstory with military hospitals and stuff like that. But other things that I'm thinking of is, because he's so attentive to what's going on in the morning, what I'm trying to cue up for you, the keeper, is what happens when he wakes up and something is changed, something he's used to is not there, something he's not used to is there. um and
Great
that's
point.
gonna sort of snap him right into whatever the plot hook is.
Oh God, that's a brilliant articulation to the keeper. Yeah, because what happens when I don't allow that character that 2 minutes to ground themselves? Beautiful. Okay, beekeeping these. You guys already know this. Spoiler alert: this is the second time we recorded this fucking exercise.
But it's already way different than last time,
Yeah.
though.
Yes,
So
way different.
We recorded it once and I technology like I did and lost everything. So we're doing it again. We switched characters and I switched the questions around and it's a completely different experience. And already I'm just like, maybe this was a really good. Anyways, moving on to the second character introduction method. This is in media res. This is in the midst of things. So just because there's no action happening in the story, the scenario, the module itself, just because it hasn't started doesn't mean that these characters aren't in the middle of things, aren't in the midst of things. So, this is one of my preferred ways to introduce characters, especially at a con, because I can test their frustration tolerance, or I can get a quick snapshot of how they engage with the community and the world around them. So that's what we're going to do in method 2. So, according to Paul, who wrote this scenario, Cold Hunger, the game begins. This is the 1920s. You're going to be at a local newspaper in Ottawa, Canada, by the name of The Watcher. Now, chances are in a roundtable method, the camera is just going to open up after character introductions, and you guys are all in the office and you're ready to get your marching orders. What do we need to go investigate? Okay, here we're going to go. What I'm going to do is take a step back from where the module starts and do just a in media res moment with the characters. So I'm going to start with Leanne Conrad here. Miss Conrad, you are arriving to the floor in which Mr. Johnson works. You know that you're going to be meeting him in his office at the Watcher. What are you wearing right now?
I am wearing, well, I guess the better question, Bridget, is what time of year is it?
Oh, you know what? In his scenario, it's winter. It's a winter scenario, so it's winter. It's winter
Okay,
in Canada.
perfect. So she is wearing this old school fur coat. It's got like even a mink like scarf like attached to it. It's been able that it's got like 8 buttons that goes, it just goes all the way down past her butt. This coat is so long. And she knows that it is going to be cold outside and she's too old to drive a car. She's not going to even try to comprehend what all of that means. So she usually takes public transportation to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So she is wearing long underwear underneath these clothes. And she has socks that are extra long underneath this longer dress that she's wearing that is a floral print.
Nice. Okay. So, Miss Conrad, you have arrived at the Watcher. The elevator dings. You are stepping out, and the second you turn the corner, heading to Mr. Johnson's office, there is a receptionist who is saying something over her shoulder. She's carrying 2 cups of coffee, and she comes and she spins directly into you. Coffee goes flying over you. It goes flying all over that mink. It goes flying all over your lap. Cups hit the ground, and she looks absolutely mortified. What do you do?
I'm going to take a step forward with my cane and push it into her foot.
She yelps. She yelps and she bites down on her tongue. Oh my God, ma'am, I am so sorry. Ma'am, I'm so sorry.
I'm also sorry. I did not realize that you were so close. I did not mean to hurt you with my cane.
You're just one of my favorite people. She yelps and she says, "No, ma'am, I'm so sorry. If you just give me a moment, I'll go get some towels from the bathroom and I'll try to. I'm so sorry." And you notice that as she walks around you, you got her in the foot well enough where she's actually limping. Allie's a terrible person, and I am here for every moment of it. Okay, Evan, or should I say, scam likely. This is your in medias res. You arrive to the Watcher, and you have one or two options. You can either take the stairs. You know that Mr. Johnson is on the 7th floor, or you can take the elevator. What is your choice?
He's going to take the stairs
Why?
because he is cold as hell, and he's going to try to warm up.
Okay, beautiful.
Moving around, just like back in France, right? In the winter, you got to keep moving. You're going to freeze to the spot.
Okay. You go to the interior stairwell and you put your hand on the handle and you immediately smell cigarette smoke coming from the other side of the door. And you put your hand on the handle and you go to turn it, and it is currently locked. This is not like a fire escape. This is not even an emergency exit. This is just a standard stairwell. This should 100% be open.
Yeah. So he's going to stare at it for a second and just knock on the door.
Okay. You knock on the door and you hear scuffling. You hear some chattering, but the door doesn't open.
It says, hey fellas, you got a light in there?
You can hear a lock disengage and the door swings open, and there are a couple of younger gentlemen who are at the bottom of the step. That look like one is in the process of hand rolling his own cigarettes, and another boy who's like coughing. He's like, "Yeah, come on in, come on in."
He takes a look. He says, thanks for the offer, but I've already got something to warm me up here. And he takes out his flask and has a swig and offers it to them. Says, you boys work here?
Yeah, Clark here works in the mail room, and I'm I work up in editing. We're just on a break, and the both of them fall out laughing, and you immediately know there's probably something else rolled into this cigarette.
Sure. He says, "Oh, great. Well, I'm headed up to the 7th floor. You want to keep an eye on things for me?"
Yeah, no problem. Did you want to take some to go?
No, I'm all right. Thanks. I got my own.
And Clark hands the flask to you. They go back to locking the door, and they go back to huddling there as you're able to climb 6 flights. Are you warm by the time you get to the top?
I have miscalculated. I'm too hot. And so I had this really big coat, I guess the army coat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm going to see my friend. He's the editor. So I had like the pin, and I was trying to look nice. And when I get to the top, it's a sweaty mess. My shirt's all sweated through, and I'm holding the coat, big bundle coat on my arm. And I get to the top, and I'm just like leaning against the door. I'm like,
beautifully done.
Go through.
Guys, that's in media res. That's just me teeing up a mini scene to get an investigator warmed up, ironed up, and for us to see at least an aspect of their personality. I tested one person's frustration tolerance. What do you do when the door doesn't open when it should? I tested someone else's frustration tolerance. What happens when an accident happens? How do you treat and interact with people around you? What do you guys think about this method as a character introduction method?
So I think it is good from the standpoint of that it creates reactive RP. And what I mean by that specifically is that you were put into a situation in which you kind of have to, on the fly, decide how your character is going to react to something. And it's a creative and open way to make it so that you establish a particular pinpoint of a personality trait. My character happens to be a little bit vengeful if someone's not paying attention to what they're doing. But not so vengeful that she's going to go out of her way to create too much trouble. You give me an inconvenience, I'll give you an inconvenience. Kind of tit for tat relationship. What I do think, though, is that it's not necessarily as player friendly for people who are new to the scene. Unless they have a couple more experienced people go before them. It can give a good example of showing this is a different way to introduce your character, but you also don't have to think as hard as you would for maybe other ways of introducing your character.
Wow. Crazy amounts of value. Sorry to chime in just before you go, Evan, but that's something I need to start utilizing at conventions. Hey, who are my brand new players who haven't done a role-playing game before? You three? Great. I'm going to start on this side of the table with my more experienced people. One, to give them time to think about their character a little bit more. Great observation, Allie. Evan, what did you think about In Medias Res?
Yeah, so I want to actually just start with with that point that being the second, third, fourth person is really helpful. Because I was listening to Allie go through the experience of, somebody dumping coffee on them. And I'm thinking, okay, what would Scam likely do here? And he would take out the flask and say, just more room for the hooch, and because I knew things about him, and I have this problem a lot when I'm on the player side, is I don't always know. I start out very passive as a player because I don't always know how my guy would move around in the world. And so figuring that out, listening to Allie go through, I said, okay, this is really a guy who is generally good natured. And he's not going to project his pain onto other people. He's going to kind of do his best to put others at their ease, and make the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
And so when it came to the door being locked, then it was easier to, okay, I know I can cross out, intimidate or coming in like a heavy, because that's not really how he operates. And he's just going to be real friendly and gentle. And so then I was able to have a much better sense of how he would handle that situation.
Yeah. Oh God. Way to crush that yet again, guys. Wow. Okay. Hopping down to method number 3, leading questions. Leading questions is 100%, 110%, 120% my favorite way to introduce characters. I typically start with a round table, just to kind of like tease up some generic information, and then I go into the leading method. So we are going to start with Mrs. Leanne Conrad again. In this particular situation, Allie, you would have done your round table already. So I won't ask for that again, but then I'm going to continue to flesh out your character with a lead-in question. And GMs, I'd like to tie this into the scenario at large to kind of, give a little bit more buy-in, some more connective tissue. But you don't really have to, because like the question I'm about to ask Allie right now has absolutely nothing to do with the scenario. But it could, depending on how Allie answers it. So, Mrs. Conrad has just done her roundtable, and this is my leading question. I'm only laughing because that's not English. I don't know what I was typing there. Just before you left home, you received a disheartening phone call from New York. Who called you and what did they say?
My grandniece. So the grandchild of my brother's daughter.
Okay.
I just received the news that my best friend was run over by a horse-drawn carriage.
Wow. Did they make it?
No.
First thing in the morning on the way to the Watcher, you just found out that your best friend of how many years?
Almost 50.
Almost 50 years has died. How do you respond to the world around you after a phone call like that?
Well, the initial reaction that I would have from that is a little bitter because she's like 8 years younger than me. So she
Mm,
should have been more aware that she probably shouldn't be crossing in the middle of the street. And that's when she was run over, because she wasn't at a corner that would have made it safe for her to cross. But at the same time, she's been living in New York for the last 10 years. So even though she's my best friend and we exchange letters, I also haven't seen her for probably the better part of a decade,
huh.
because we're both old as hell. We're not going to want to travel. It's just not in the nature once you reach a certain age. So I'm frustrated that she wasn't more responsible. And I'm sad that she's dead. But I also know that there's only a handful of people my age left in my life at this point. So I'm also resigned. Everybody's dying anyway. I'll be able to cope and move on, but probably the real grief won't hit for a couple days.
Understood. Who? Allie, way to tackle a really dark situation. I mean, you teed it up. You did it to yourself. I mean, you literally dug your own grave and then laid it in and pulled the dirt back over you. But that was beautifully done. As a keeper, what I'm hearing is I can weaponize horse-drawn carriages later on in the scenario against this character. Whether it's a cat running out in front of a carriage and almost dying, whether they have to take a horse-drawn carriage to get to wherever they're going next, whether or not they see their friend covered in snow in between trees with red eyes, that is what I'm going to weaponize going forward in this particular scenario because it's been teed up to me here on the front end. Evan, for your method number 3, leading questions, here's what I have for you. You've already done your round table. We won't ask for that again. Scam Likely is sitting down having his morning tea, coffee, juice, whatever it is. You're reading over the morning newspaper as you're thumbing through your mail, and there it is, that envelope. Who is it from, and why can't you bring yourself to open it?
Wife's lawyer. Things have fallen pretty irretrievably apart, and he knows that if he opens that envelope, that's the end of the day for him. He has not responded to any of them. There's a stack of them. He opened the first one. He opened the second one. He didn't open the third one, and this is maybe number 5 or 6. But he knows he has to get on the road. He has to get up to Canada. So that's he just leaves it there, takes a drink, and then moves on with his day.
Wow, you guys both went beautifully dark on this one. This is why I love horror games and good role players. Beautiful. So, what I'm hearing from that is I can weaponize that wife's voice or any hint or suggestion of a reunion. The wife's voice is being carried on the wind. He bumps into that attorney somewhere. Those are the things that I can use to further promote buy in and clause in. Now, I can anticipate what you guys are going to say, but I want to hear it. How do you guys feel about this particular method?
I really like this method. It is great for all levels of players. It doesn't matter if you're new. It doesn't matter if you have been gaming for 45 years. It allows for everyone, especially after the round table, it allows for someone to go, oh, well, this is probably how I would react to the situation. I do think that it falls into the same lines of in media res, though, where
Oh,
experience of experienced players first, new players second.
Yep.
The other significant benefit to leading questions is that you talk about the buy-in for the scenario. I talk about the buy-in for the character.
Yes, Allie. Yes. You just gonna drop the mic and get quiet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it every single time you go how much I love you, but you two are just, oh God. Evan, what are your thoughts on leading questions?
Yeah, it's like the mirror of the in media res, in that instead of so I didn't get I got a lot more backstory for this guy. I got a lot more of his interior life. but not as much of the active, this is what he would do when presented with a particular situation.
Yeah.
That may have been because of the direction I went with it, but I felt that this was more background and less moving forward.
Well said. Well said. I will say it's interesting on this one because I believe, and I could be wrong, this is the first time I got extended family life from you guys. And all the other introductions, I didn't know that Scam was married or in the
Yeah, I
process of
didn't
getting
either
divorced,
until you asked the question.
which is why I love leading questions. I understand that, you know, Leanne may be on the surlier side, but there's something to say about a character that's just like, I'm 94. Most people don't get to where I am. People dying around me is normal. Yeah, it hurts, but it's also Tuesday. Like, brilliantly done. Okay, guys. Last method is method number 4, which I have named New Skills, New Stuff. I've tried this method exactly once, and it was a complete and total delight. I surprised a character with a 60% in ride and a new horse. And she absolutely loved this horse to death. And I teed this up for this particular player because I knew that she personally has an affinity for animals. So I knew it would just complement her really well. Guys, that horse winded up trotting its way through the first 4 or 5 episodes as like a leading character. The cast loved the horse. She loved the horse. The story hated the horse. And there was all this drama and amazing things. Evans listened to it. Allie has too, which is hysterical. Yeah, God bless her and this horse that she got on the fly. But she didn't have ride, she didn't have horse, and I gave it to her, and it wound up just being this absolutely delightful thing in the story. So, new skills, new stuff. Basically, what the keeper, the GM, the storyteller, the mother does is either throw a surprise skill or a surprise item or a surprise thing at the character as a part of their character introduction. So, we would do a round table like we've done, like the cold open we've already talked about. And I decided to split this round up, guys, versus giving you guys both a new skill and a new thing. I gave one of you guys a skill and one of you guys a thing. We'll see how this one goes. So Allie, I gave you a new thing. So after your round table, I would hit your character with something like that. Miss Conrad, you are scheduled to host your grandchildren next month for 2 entire weeks. How are you feeling about their upcoming stay? New
About
thing,
fucking time.
Keep going.
It's been 5 years since their parents let them come up here. They really liked it up here last time, and they're still young enough that they're easy to watch. But if I need to go out and do an errand or, you know, have this meeting at a newspaper or something like that, they're old enough to kind of take care of themselves. They are 11 and 8 years old.
Okay.
Hey, Allie, why has it been 5 years? What happened last time?
I got in a fight with my son.
See, that's sad. I was, you know, hoping for something spooky, and I should know better. It's always going to be sad.
Allie can dive into the humans and the emotions of a character, honey. Let me tell you, she will get in those bowels and stay there. Okay, you got into a fight with their son. I'm assuming their father. Did he withhold them for 5 years? Like, take that one level down.
So the fight was over the fact that I didn't want to move to New York. I've been living here for the last 75 years. Came over from England on a fucking boat with my parents because they wanted to start over. And I've been established here. I've owned my apartment for the better part of 30 years. I know that he worries about me and my health, and he's afraid that because I don't really have a significant support system up here, that I'm going to die and he's not going to know about it. But I had such a good upbringing in that I am so intelligent and have been fortunate enough to learn so much that I'm still sharp as a whip.
Yeah.
It's not hard for me to take care of myself. Sure, I get around a lot slower now, but I still do all my own grocery shopping. I'm still able to walk up the 1 flight of stairs to my apartment. I'm able to do all these things, and I was a little resentful that he believed that I wasn't able to take care of myself.
Holy cow, Allie. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, Evan, hopping over to you. I gave Allie new stuff, which was grandkids. I'm going to give you new skills. So I don't know why I have to keep looking down at your character's name because Scam Likely should stick in my head. So Scam Likely, I am giving you a 60% in law. I could pass the bar levels of legal competency. Why do you have such a high law skill?
Because he's really good at his job. And the one thing that you don't want to do as a PI is make a collar and have it overturned. Because you have to maintain your contacts in the DA's office, you have to maintain the cops, and if you waste their time by bringing them weak stuff or overturnable evidence, they are not going to let you in the front door, and you will be shut out as soon as the PD shows up at any case.
Holy cow. Well, did you go to law school? Where did you pick this information up?
No, I think he picked it up on the job.
Okay.
I think he made a couple bad decisions at first, which set him back a good ways. In fact, I'm going to say he was in New York and then went down to Baltimore to start over. He really likes the job. He thinks it's worth doing.
Yeah.
But he needed to start fresh because he botched a couple big cases, and the way that the PD is in New York, they just turned their backs on him, and that was it. So he got smart real fast.
Wow.
He has a high education, but I'm going to say it's not a formal education.
Okay.
So, Evan, what was the first big case that you botched?
It was let's say, I'm going to say it was a domestic violence case, where he just totally misread the situation. And, I'm just improving. This is not going to stand up to scrutiny, but I think he beat the hell out of a husband, and it turned out that it was a brother that was doing it. It was a real complex situation. He wanted to go in and be the hero. He was used to real straightforward stuff. And so he basically, not only did he, screw the case and kind of, it was now radioactive, but he also had to basically flee to avoid a battery charge.
Y'all are so deliciously broken. Holy hell. Oh, God. Okay. That was method number 4. New skills, new stuff. What are your guys' impressions?
So I think that it is potentially beneficial to people who are familiar with a system, whatever system that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that realistically, it should be for experienced players only.
Okay.
And the reason that I say that is because a new player, if you give them a skill of 75 in a language of, say, French, and their primary language is English, they're not going to know off the bat, generally speaking, they're not going to know off the bat what to do with such a high comprehension of language. Maybe they're bilingual. Maybe they lived in France and came over. There are so many possibilities that it could be extremely intimidating to try to incorporate that into a character. And I think it's important that players are familiar with a system, in that if you're going to give them a new skill, they also understand how that skill works.
Well said. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's down to how it's framed. I think the new stuff works pretty well because that's sort of independent of a game mechanic generally. I think for a new skill, the danger is they just regurgitate what's on the page. Like, well, with this skill, I can do this, this, and that. But I think, if you frame it a little bit differently, like if you, and I think you did this with the horse situation. If you said, "Where did you learn to ride?" Or if you went to someone else, you're like, "Okay, I'm giving you, 50% in singing. Why can you sing all of Giuseppe Verdi's operettas from memory?" And then they could say, well, my grandfather used to take me to the opera or whatever, but it keeps it more in that system agnostic background character personality thing. And then so they file away like, okay, I have this skill, but I don't have to worry about mechanically how it works. I can use it to further the person.
That's a great fix for Allie's concern, by the way. That's basically a lead-in question plus a skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. So we went through 4 methods, and I'm going to ask you guys to choose your favorite and your least favorite. And I'm actually going to go ahead and include the cold round table as well. So you've got your round table, you've got your morning routine, you've got in media res, you have leading questions, and then you have new skills, new stuff. Allie, what's your personal favorite?
So I'm actually a big fan of both in media res and
Mhm.
leading questions, and it's something that you could easily combine because the in media res, sure, you have this particular situation, but also why is it that you're reacting this way to this particular situation? Because
Ooh.
we established that I, you know, stepped on this poor girl's foot with my cane in retaliation, but you're not going to know that unless you ask the question, why did you do this? So
Oh,
I think the combination of these two things gives enough background to a character as well as a particular action that it actually enhances the player significantly more and enhances the character that they're creating significantly more.
I like that. And your least favorite?
My least favorite is new skills, new stuff.
Yeah, I remember that from last time too.
And just like last time, I'm a big proponent of if you're building a character from scratch with the parameters that you're given. So it's like, okay, so you have this many experience points, and maybe the GM decides they're throwing you further into the action. You already have all this stuff that you're dealing with, so they give you a bunch more experience points at the top. If you're gonna give them other stuff on top of that, it complicates things. It makes it so that maybe they have too much stuff, or maybe they have something that's completely irrelevant to the way they built their character.
Well articulated. Well articulated. Evan, what is your favorite and your least favorite?
I'm a little stuck because as a player, my favorite's in media res.
Okay.
Because that gets me in an active position with the character. I'm not telling a story about them. I'm now using them to tell the story. I'm doing things with them. And as a player, I now know a lot more about how I want to do that. As a keeper, as a GM,
Mm-hmm.
morning routine is my favorite because I want to know, I want the player to tell me what they envision their character's baseline as. What's a normal
Yeah.
morning for them? What do they do when they're not under threat? What's important to them? Or what are they, are they a mess of a human being? Are they really together? What are the things that I can lean on and break for them? Um, and you have, you were talking us through, you've got that predatory instinct. Okay, I know this is important to them. I know this is a pain point for them. We're gonna hit all those buttons.
Thank you.
And I, yeah, and I get that better from the morning routine, which is a little bit more of a vulnerability, right? Like nobody looks good when they first wake up in the morning. You get the sleep stuff in your eyes, your hair's all over the place. So I want to see them at that moment and then come back with it later. Least favorite, I think the cold, like I feel like I'm sucking up, but the cold open, because as a keeper, I already know what's on your stat sheet generally. And as a player, that I never know what to do with a character after that. Like it gives me no momentum in any direction. I don't know what to do. So
Listen, you can call that a suck up, but in a lot of cases, I absolutely agree with you on that one. That is true. Okay, so we have tried 4 methods. Viewers at home, feel free to always comment or chime in or hop onto the Discord and tell us what other methods that you use or you would like to see used. But between Allie and Evan, you guys have so much experience, both behind the screen, both on the table, as organizers, as performers, as writers, as creators. What else do you guys want to echo before you guys walk off of this particular coaching session? This is your open arena to be like, hey, actually, I've been meaning to say this about this, and bam, here's my 2 cents.
So I think that there is something to be said about whether or not you talk in third person all the time, or whether you have a combination of third person and first person, or whether you talk in first person all the time. As someone who has led many games, participated in many games. People who are on the newer side generally opt for third person because it separates them a little bit from the character. Maybe this is something that they're not going to do long term. Maybe it's because they are so unfamiliar with how to approach something. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are some people who always want to be distanced from the character, no matter how long they've been doing something. They don't want to be so invested that if the character, say, dies or the campaign ends way too soon or something like that, it makes it very easy to do that. And then there's players that kind of do a combination of things. They talk in character, but as far as the other stuff that they do in third person, which is why, like, in that round table, I did everything in third person because it's establishing this is who this character is, whereas I did everything else in first person because I'm investing myself in the character. And people who talk in first person, in my opinion, are generally all in. They are completely embedded in this character, and they are embedding themselves in everything that they are saying. There is no going back from the things that they are establishing, and that's the most important thing to them. And I think it's important for GMs to understand what kind of mix of players that they are dealing with, because there are some GMs that insist on first person all the time when there are players who's not gonna ever be comfortable with that.
Yeah. I feel like I wrote that down and I'm going to circle it. I feel like that's a whole nother segment of how do you role play in first or third person. And there are so many different ways to tear that down and break it down because I'm not even going to comment. We're just going to schedule another one for just that one. Evan, while the arena is open, anything else you would like to add value to?
Just one real quick is I think, I found myself thinking a lot more about the ecosystem of people around Scam Likely, partly because he's a PI and a lot of the detective genre is really all about the people they know, their informants, their allies, the people they're running from. And so I really was, trying to paint that picture. But then also, from a writer's perspective, I would like to see more of these tools in the scenarios. It can be hard if you're not using pre-gens, but like I remember in your in Sorrow and Savo, like you had this whole introductory section, which was the staff meeting, and it was just, let's take these pre-gens and let's take a few moments of quiet to let the players sink into those characters in a way that guides the keeper into it. You had mentioned that you as a keeper, you were starting before what was on the page, and I'm thinking as a writer, if the word count allows, if I have time for it, can I help keepers engage with their players and give them some written guidance on, here are some questions you can ask, here are some little like prelude scenes you can do, something short, because we don't want to make an hour out of it necessarily, but something to call attention to that as a formal part of the scenario experience. So I don't know whether that'll become a thing or how that would work necessarily, but it's something I want to explore.
I think going forward with that type of encouragement, I'll try to do that as like an optional box with the things that I write. Hey guys,
because some people will be like, I just want to dive right in.
Yep. But for those who are open to, alternate methods, that'd be something that's like, hey, here's a fun way to. That's brilliant, Evan, and that's actually extremely validating personally. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Symphony fans. So that is a segment that I titled that I don't remember. 4 creative ways for GMs to introduce their characters. Evan said this the last time. This should be called Symphony Overtures. So by the time it gets uploaded to YouTube, that is probably what I am going to do. Allie, Evan, thank you again and again for coming back for this crazy amounts of value. Evan, per usual, I absolutely love the empathy that you bring into anything from game design or character introductions, and something that you're hyper aware of is the experience of the keeper versus the experience of the player. And Allie, yet again, something I sincerely appreciate about you is how you are constantly an advocate and being super aware of new players. Where are they on the spectrum of their comfortability with role playing or gaming or role playing, or how do they interact with skills? You're constantly an advocate for new players, and it's something I need to be more aware of, because it's very easy just to go spinning off in one direction and forget, like, you might have somebody at the table who's literally never done this before. So I love you both. Thank you so much. We are going to close out. Allie, one more time, tell us who you are, what you do, where people can find you, and all of that sexy stuff.
Okay, so you can find me on the Symphony Discord, and I am an active participant on the Old Ways Discord. I play a character named Katerina Bogdanovich for the Vampire the Masquerade Chronicle that we run. So come join us, won't you?
And Evan, close us off, baby.
I am Evan Perlman. I write for Call of Cthulhu on the Miskatonic repository and for forthcoming Chaosium products. I put together group projects. You can find me on the Discords. You can find me in the Miskatonic repository Creators Circle on Facebook, or you can stand at a crossroads and chant my name 3 times and I will appear.
I'm going to try that tonight.
Not tonight. I'm busy.
Boundaries. Evan, Allie, Evan, I love you guys. Symphony, thank you so much for joining us. If you like this content and you would like to help us make more of it, please consider backing us at patreon.com/Symphony Entertainment. Thank you for joining us again for another night of the Symphony, and we hope to see you again soon. Mwah.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can actually end this one.